Tonight, as you listen, I want you to allow every word to move through you like a current, not as something distant or theological, but as something intimate and alive, meant for you in this very moment. You came to this video because something within you is seeking clarity, seeking power, seeking an understanding of what Jesus truly taught about love, forgiveness, and salvation. And you will not leave empty-handed. If you stay with me, if you listen not just with your ears, but with that deep inner awareness where truth is recognized before it is spoken, you will feel something shift. Not later, not someday, but now. For what we are about to discuss is not history. It is not tradition. It is not mere belief. It is experience. It is the unveiling of who you truly are beneath the noise, the fear, the past, and the stories you have carried. What Jesus taught was not meant for scholars or saints alone. It was meant for the one listening to me right now, the one who desires to know themselves and know God through the harmony of love, through the release of forgiveness, and through the awakening we call salvation. And I want you to listen carefully, because what Jesus revealed was not a set of rules. It was not a system of punishment and reward. It was not a path outside you or above you. His teaching pointed to something so radical, so transformative, that most of the world could not believe it, that the kingdom of God is within you, and every act of love, every true moment of forgiveness, every instant of salvation is born not from somewhere else, but from your own inner being. He spoke of these things not as possibilities, but as certainties, available here, available now, available to anyone who dares to see themselves as more than a collection of memories and fears. So tonight, I ask you to listen with that inner ear and to follow the thread that leads you back to the truth that has always been yours. When Jesus spoke of love, he was not speaking of sentiment or affection. He was speaking of the very force that sustains the universe, the creative principle that becomes form according to the consciousness that wields it. Love your neighbor as yourself was not a moral instruction, but a declaration of fact. You cannot love another except to the degree that you recognize the same life within them that exists within you. And when he said, love your enemies, he shattered the foundation of separation, for he revealed that what you call an enemy is often the reflection of a divided mind, a state within you that has not yet been reconciled. To love even what appears unlovable is to exercise the authority of the divine within. For love is not an emotion. It is the recognition of unity in the face of division. Every time you choose to see the good in another, even when appearances deny it, you are practicing the love he taught. Every time you refuse to respond to hatred with hatred or fear with fear, you are demonstrating that love is stronger than circumstance. Love is not passive. It is the boldest act of strength known to humanity. Love is not blind. It sees beyond the mask. To love, in the way he intended, is to call forth the truth of a person, not their temporary shadow. And when you love in this way, you liberate yourself as well as them. For in every act of true love, you declare silently that you and they share the same source, the same life, the same divine spark. And this recognition, this awareness, is the foundation of everything else he taught. Now let us turn to forgiveness, for forgiveness is the companion of love, the cleansing power that restores the mind to wholeness. When Jesus taught forgiveness, he did not speak of it as an obligation or a courtesy, but as an absolute necessity for awakening. Forgive 70 times 7, he said, meaning do it until there is nothing left in you that accuses, nothing left that binds you to the past, nothing left that keeps you chained to a memory of what went wrong. Forgiveness is not for the other person. It is for you. It is the release of the pain you have carried, the dissolving of images that no longer serve you, the refusal to let old conditions dictate who you are now. Forgiveness, as he taught it, is the restoration of creative freedom. You cannot create a new future while holding resentment from the past. Resentment freezes you in place. Unforgiveness recycles the same experiences. But forgiveness, true forgiveness, washes the slate clean. It returns you to the present moment where change is possible. And here is the deeper truth he revealed. Forgiveness is not merely the letting go of what another has done. It is the letting go of what you have believed about yourself. When he said, your sins are forgiven, he was not referring to moral mistakes. He was referring to the false self, the false identity you have assumed, the layers of guilt, shame, or unworthiness that have convinced you that you are separate from God. To forgive yourself is to awaken from the illusion that you are anything less than divine. Many of you listening right now carry memories that trouble you, mistakes that haunt you, names you have called yourself in anger or disappointment. You carry these as though they define you, as though they are etched into your being. But they are not. They are shadows, temporary, insubstantial, dissolvable. Jesus revealed that forgiveness is the power to reshape identity. When you forgive, you do not pretend the past did not happen. You declare that it no longer holds authority over who you choose to be now. In forgiveness, you reclaim your power. You say to yourself, I am free, I am whole, I am new. And the moment you decide that, the moment you accept that inner absolution, your world begins to reflect that change. For the outer is always an echo of the inner. Now we come to salvation, and I want you to listen very carefully, for this is where many misunderstand. Salvation is not an escape from a future punishment. Salvation is not a ticket to a distant heaven. Salvation, as Jesus taught it, is awakening. Awakening to your true nature, awakening to the divine within, awakening to the recognition that you and the Father are one. Salvation is the moment you stop believing in separation. It is the moment you look within and realize you have never been abandoned, never been condemned, never been lost. Salvation is the discovery that the kingdom of God is not above you or beyond you, but within you, waiting to be realized, waiting to be expressed. Salvation is the unveiling of your identity. It is the lifting of the veil that has hidden your true self from your own perception. He taught that when you recognize who you are, when you understand that the life within you is the same life that spoke through him, you are free, you are whole, you are complete. Salvation is not given to you from outside. It blossoms from within when you see yourself as God sees you. And how does God see you? As beloved, as capable, as powerful, as eternal, not as someone trapped by circumstance, not as someone unworthy of divine favor, but as someone who carries the image and likeness of the Creator. You have been told that salvation requires struggle, effort, or ritual. But he never taught that. He taught simplicity. He taught awareness. He taught belief. According to your faith, be it unto you. Salvation comes through the acceptance of truth, not as belief in doctrine, but belief in your inherent divinity. To accept the truth of who you are is to step into the freedom he demonstrated. He did not demonstrate what one special man could do. He demonstrated what every awakened individual could accomplish when they discover the Christ within, the divine imagination, the creative power, the unity with the Father. Love, forgiveness, and salvation are not separate teachings. They are one teaching, expressed in three forms. Love is the nature of God. Forgiveness is the release of all that hides that nature. Salvation is the recognition that God's nature and your nature are one. This is what he came to reveal. This is what he lived. This is what he demonstrated through every healing, every parable, every quiet moment of compassion. And this is what he meant when he said, "Follow me." He was not asking you to imitate his personality, but to awaken to the same awareness that lived in him. So tonight, as you listen, I want you to apply these teachings not as distant ideas, but as living truths. Think of someone you struggle to love. Think of someone who has hurt you or disappointed you. Think of yourself in a moment of weakness or regret. And now, imagine looking at them, not with the old perception, but with new eyes, the eyes he spoke of when he said, "Let those with eyes to see, see. See them as spirit, see them as divine, see them not as their temporary state, but as the eternal being within. When you do this, you love them. When you do this, you forgive them. When you do this, you save them, and you save yourself. If you hold an image of someone who wronged you, release it now, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Release them from the prison of your memory. Release yourself from the burden of carrying them. Forgive, not by saying the past was right, but by refusing to let the past define your present. Say within yourself, "I free you. I free me. I release this image. I choose love." And feel the weight lift. Feel the space open within you for something new. This is what forgiveness does. It makes room for miracles. And what about salvation? How do you experience it now? In this very moment, you experience it by recognizing that everything you have sought outside yourself, love, worthiness, peace, power, connection, has always been within. Salvation is the inward turn. It is the recognition that the self you have doubted is the very self he came to reveal. When he said the kingdom of God is within you, he meant it literally. Within your awareness lies the creative power of the universe. Within your imagination lies the blueprint of your destiny. Within your heart lies the capacity to transform your world. Salvation is not a future promise, it is a present realization. It is knowing that you are not the storm, you are the calm within it. You are not the mistake, you are the awareness that transcends it. You are not the body, you are the life that animates it. You are not the fear, you are the love that dissolves it. This is salvation, to know the truth of yourself so deeply that no external condition can convince you otherwise. So I want you to do something now. Place your attention gently on your own being, not on your thoughts, not on your emotions, but on the awareness behind them, that silent presence that has been with you in every moment of your life. That is the part of you he spoke to. That is the part of you he awakened. That is the part of you that is one with the divine. Feel it, recognize it, let it expand, let it breathe, let it declare itself as the truth of your existence. This is love. This is forgiveness. This is salvation. When you love, you are aligning with the divine nature. When you forgive, you are clearing the path for that nature to shine without obstruction. When you accept salvation, you are proclaiming that this divine nature is who you truly are. And when you live from this awareness, everything changes. Your relationships transform. Your circumstances shift. Your inner world becomes radiant. And the outer follows. For the outer is only ever a reflection of the inner. So let this moment be a turning point. Let this be the moment you remember what Jesus truly taught, not as doctrine, but as experience. You are loved because you are one with love. You are forgiven because nothing of your true nature can ever be lost. You are saved because salvation is the recognition of your divine identity. Take this truth into your mind, your heart, your imagination, your daily life, and watch as the world reshapes itself around the radiance of your awakened soul. And as you continue listening, I want you to realize something even deeper about these teachings. Everything Jesus spoke about love, forgiveness, and salvation was meant to awaken you to the authority of your own consciousness. He spoke to the people of his time using their language, their stories, their symbols, but beneath every word was the same unchanging truth, that the life you are aware of within yourself is not separate from God. And if this is true, then every act of love is an act of divine recognition, every act of forgiveness is the restoration of divine order, and every experience of salvation is the unveiling of divine identity. When he spoke of loving your neighbor, he was not giving a command, he was revealing a secret. He was saying, your neighbor is yourself pushed out, reflected through the lens of your own awareness. When you see another person as separate from you, you close the door to understanding. But when you see them as a mirror, you suddenly realize that every encounter is an opportunity to know yourself more clearly. And from this realization arises a new kind of love. Not sentimental love, not conditional love, but the love that understands unity. You love not because someone earns it, but because love is the only truth that can be expressed when you see oneness. This is why he emphasized love even toward those who persecute you. Because if you respond to hurt with hurt, you perpetuate the illusion of separation. But if you respond with love, not as weakness but as recognition, you dissolve the illusion completely. The person you call an enemy is often a representation of a forgotten part of yourself, an aspect of consciousness asking to be integrated, healed, reclaimed. Love does not deny that pain was felt. It transforms the meaning of it. Love takes the situation that once bound you and turns it into the very means of your liberation. Consider your own life for a moment. Think of the people who have been difficult to love, those who have challenged your peace, your patience, your sense of self. And now ask yourself, what if every one of those individuals was part of a greater invitation? What if they entered your life not to harm you, but to reveal something within you that was ready to come to the surface? What if love is not merely emotional but revelatory? When you choose to love despite appearances, you declare that nothing outside of you determines who you are. You reclaim your power. You choose truth over reaction. You choose the divine over the temporary. And this choice is intimately connected to forgiveness. For forgiveness is not possible without love, and love cannot fully bloom without forgiveness. He spoke so frequently about forgiving others and forgiving yourself because he understood how the mind clings to memory, how it holds on to images of the past, how it repeats stories long after they have ceased to serve any purpose. Forgiveness dissolves these memories not by erasing the events, but by transforming your relationship to them. When you forgive, you say, "This no longer defines me, this no longer binds me, this no longer limits what I can become." And instantly your consciousness becomes free. Some of you listening carry memories from childhood, relationships that broke you, decisions you regret, moments where you did not act as you wish you had. These memories sit inside you like closed rooms, untouched but heavy, and you believe that by holding on to them you maintain control, or protect yourself, or ensure the past cannot repeat. But this is an illusion. The more tightly you hold on to the memory, the more it shapes your present. The more you replay the hurt, the more you live inside it. But forgiveness opens the door. Forgiveness allows new life to move through you. Forgiveness says, "I am no longer that version of me. I choose a higher state." Forgiveness is not forgetting, it is remembering who you truly are. It is remembering that you are not defined by your lowest moment, but by the presence within you that can rise above it. Every time you forgive, you step into a new version of yourself. And that new version is what he meant by salvation. Salvation is not a destination, it is a transformation. It is the shift from identifying with the limited self to identifying with the divine self. It is an inner awakening, an inner realization that the life within you is eternal, powerful, creative, and whole. Salvation happens whenever you say, "I am not what the world has told me. I am not what my fears have convinced me. I am not the product of my past. I am something far greater." And the moment you claim that truth, even quietly, even gently, the world around you begins to change. Some of you listening have believed for years that salvation is something you must earn, something that happens after death, something that is given only to the worthy. But he taught the opposite. He taught that salvation is immediate, available, and inherent. He showed people who saw themselves as broken, unworthy, abandoned, or sinful that the kingdom was already inside them. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. He showed that holiness is not something granted by authority, it is something recognized within. Salvation is the recognition of your true nature. And what is your true nature? It is the nature of love. It is the nature of forgiveness. It is the nature of divine imagination. It is the nature of infinite awareness, expressing itself through your individuality. When you touch this nature, you begin to live differently. You speak differently. You see differently. You respond differently. And every aspect of your outer life begins to align with this inner awakening. This is why he insisted that faith could move mountains. Because faith is not belief in an external power, faith is belief in your inner authority, your inner divinity, your inner connection to God. When he healed, he always said, "Your faith has made you whole." Not his power, not his touch, not his words, your faith. He was always pointing back to the individual, always directing them inward, always showing that the creative force that healed them existed within them, not outside of them. Imagine what this means for you listening right now. It means that the love you seek is already within you. It means the forgiveness you long for is already available. It means the salvation you have hoped for is already yours. All of it lives within your awareness, waiting to be recognized. And the moment you recognize it, the moment you claim it, the moment you live from it, everything shifts. Think for a moment about the conditions of your life that seem unchangeable, relationships that feel stuck, patterns that seem repetitive, fears that seem persistent. These things appear immovable only because you have looked at them with the same state of consciousness for too long. When your state changes, your world changes. Love changes your state. Forgiveness changes your state. Salvation is the ultimate change of state. And in a new state of consciousness, the old conditions cannot remain. They dissolve, they transform, they make way for the new. This is why he taught through stories, because he understood that imagination is the gateway to transformation. When he spoke of the prodigal son returning home, he was showing the journey of the soul returning to its true nature. When he spoke of the lost sheep being found, he was showing that no aspect of your being is ever too far from grace. When he spoke of the mustard seed, he was showing that even the smallest shift in awareness can grow into something magnificent. And when he spoke of the kingdom being within, he was showing that everything begins in consciousness. So tonight, as you listen, consider what it means to bring love into your consciousness. Not love as sentiment, but love as recognition, love as unity, love as power. Consider what it means to bring forgiveness into your consciousness, not as permission for others, but as liberation for yourself. Consider what it means to accept salvation as your present reality, not your future reward. These teachings were not meant to be distant ideals. They were meant to be lived, embodied, experienced. And as you walk through your life, as you meet others, as you encounter challenges, as you face your own reflections, you will find countless opportunities to practice these truths. Every moment becomes an invitation. Every encounter becomes a mirror. Every thought becomes a seed. And the more you align with the love he revealed, the more naturally forgiveness flows. The more forgiveness flows, the more effortlessly salvation unfolds. One leads to the other like steps in a single movement of awakening. And as you continue to listen, I want you to feel how these teachings are not distant, they are not abstract, they are not meant for some other time or some other life. They are meant for this moment, exactly as you are now. For love, forgiveness, and salvation are not events that wait for your perfection. They are the very forces that bring you into alignment with the truth of who you are, even while you believe yourself to be unfinished. They operate within you, not because you are flawless, but because you are divine. And divinity does not require perfection. It requires recognition. Think of the way you look at your life. Perhaps you see mistakes, failures, disappointments. Perhaps you see moments where you wish you had been stronger, kinder, wiser, and you hold these things against yourself as though they define your worth. But the teachings we are exploring tonight show something altogether different. They show that love is the essence of your being, forgiveness is the path back to your center, and salvation is the unveiling of who you have always been under every layer of fear or guilt or regret. These are not rewards, they are inheritances. They do not come from outside you, they rise from within you. When you begin to understand this, you stop searching for validation in others. You stop looking to the world to decide your value. You stop giving your power away to opinions, circumstances, or memories. Instead, you turn inward. You begin to see that everything you have ever needed has been within you, waiting for you to look in its direction. This inward turn is the beginning of awakening. It is the beginning of love, not love directed outward first, but love directed toward yourself, toward your own being, toward the spark of divinity that has never left you, not for one moment. This inner love is not selfish. It is the root from which every outward expression of love grows. You cannot truly love another if you reject yourself. You cannot truly forgive another if you refuse to forgive yourself. And you cannot fully embrace salvation until you accept that you are worthy of it. So the first gesture of love is always inward. It is saying to yourself, despite everything I have believed, I am deserving of love. This recognition opens the door to transformation. It softens the heart. It clears the mind. It makes way for forgiveness. And forgiveness, as we continue to explore, is not simply the release of others from the hold of your memory. It is the release of yourself from the prison of your own thoughts. Many people believe they cannot forgive because the memory of the hurt is too strong. But the memory itself is not the prison. The prison is the meaning you have assigned to it. When you forgive, you do not erase the memory, you erase the meaning. You remove the emotional weight. You dissolve the identity that formed around it. You say, this happened, but it does not define me. This hurt me, but it does not limit me. And instantly the memory loses its power. Forgiveness is freedom, freedom from the past, freedom from fear, freedom from the beliefs that have kept you small. It is the cleansing of the inner landscape, the removing of the stones that have blocked the flow of your own divine nature. And as forgiveness clears the inner path, love flows more naturally. Love becomes the atmosphere of your awareness. You become someone who sees beyond appearances, someone who sees the truth in others even when they do not see it in themselves. This shift in consciousness is salvation, not a moment of rescue, but a moment of recognition. Salvation is the realization that you are not your wounds, you are not your fears, you are not the stories others have told about you. You are not the limitations you have accepted. You are the awareness behind all of these things. You are the presence that has observed every experience without being harmed by any of them. Salvation is the awakening to this presence. It is the remembering of your eternal nature. When you recognize this presence within yourself, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see it in others. The whole world becomes transparent. You look at people not as personalities, but as divine beings playing roles. You see their fears, their confusion, their anger, not as truth, but as temporary states. And you respond to them not with judgment, but with compassion. This compassion is not pity, it is understanding. It is the recognition that beneath their behavior, beneath their pain, beneath their mistakes, lies the same divine presence that you have discovered within yourself. This recognition transforms your relationships. You stop reacting to people's outer behavior and begin responding to their inner truth. You speak life into them. You speak healing into them. You speak possibility into them. And in doing so, you awaken something dormant in them. Love awakens love. Forgiveness awakens forgiveness. Truth awakens truth. Your presence becomes a catalyst for the transformation of others, not by effort, but by understanding. This is why he taught that the kingdom of God is like a seed, because a single seed of awareness within you grows into something vast, something strong, something that provides shelter, shade, nourishment, and life. And as this inner kingdom expands, the outer world reshapes itself to reflect it. You begin to attract different experiences, different people, different opportunities. Not because you are trying to change the world, but because you have changed your state. The outer simply echoing the inner. And yet, this transformation is not always immediate. Sometimes it is subtle, sometimes it unfolds slowly, like dawn before sunrise. But even in its slowness, it is certain. Once the inner shift occurs, the outer must follow, for the outer has no life of its own. It is the shadow cast by your consciousness. When consciousness shifts, the shadow must shift. So imagine now what it means to live from a state of love. Imagine what it means to see yourself as worthy, whole, capable, and divine. Imagine what it means to release every grievance, every resentment, every trace of guilt. Imagine what it means to wake each day knowing that salvation is not something you are trying to earn, but something you are expressing. Imagine walking through the world with this awareness. Imagine how differently you would speak, how differently you would carry yourself, how differently you would respond to challenges. This is the life he pointed to. A life not bound by fear, not weighed down by the past, not driven by the need for approval. A life anchored in the truth of your being. A life that radiates love, that embodies forgiveness, that expresses salvation effortlessly. You may wonder how to begin living such a life, especially when the world around you still seems so complex, so chaotic, so unpredictable. But the beginning is always simple. You pause, you breathe, you turn inward. You look for the presence within you that does not change. That presence is your foundation. That presence is your guide. That presence is the source of every loving impulse, every forgiving gesture, every salvific realization. Start with love. Love yourself. Love your breath. Love the consciousness through which you see the world. Love the awareness that listens to these words. Love the life that animates you. Love the possibility that lives within you. Let this love expand. Let it soften the places within you that feel tense or guarded. Let it reach the corners of your being that you have neglected. Love is not a feeling, it is a decision. It is the decision to see yourself as worthy of the divine. Then move into forgiveness, not all at once, not with force, gently, softly. Look at the memories you have avoided. Look at the things you have blamed yourself for. Look at the names you have called yourself in private moments. And say, I forgive you, I release you.
You did the best you could with the understanding you had.
Now you are free. This is not self-indulgence, it is self-liberation. And as you forgive yourself, you will find it easier to forgive others, for you will recognize that everyone is learning, everyone is searching, everyone is doing the best they can from their current state of awareness. And from love and forgiveness arises salvation, not as a distant hope, but as an immediate reality. Salvation is experienced in moments, moments when you choose peace over fear, moments when you choose compassion over judgment, moments when you choose truth over illusion, moments when you remember who you are. These moments accumulate, they deepen, they expand, and eventually they form the foundation of a new way of living, a new way of being, a new way of seeing the world. And as we go even deeper into this unfolding awareness, I want you to understand something essential. These teachings about love, forgiveness, and salvation were never meant to be complicated. They were never meant to be buried under rituals or rules or layers of interpretation. They were meant to be lived. They were meant to be breathed. They were meant to awaken you from the inside out. Every time you hear these words, something within you recognizes their truth before your mind even begins to interpret them. This is because the truth they carry is already within you, waiting to be remembered. Love, at its highest expression, is not an action but a state of being. It is the presence you become when your heart remembers its origin. It is the awareness that flows through you when you stop resisting the truth of who you are. This love does not need to be earned, nor does it need permission to exist. It is the very fabric of your identity. And when you let yourself rest in that awareness, even for a moment, you feel a kind of freedom that cannot be explained, only experienced. But to experience this love fully, the mind must become quiet enough to hear the whisper of your own divine nature. This is where forgiveness becomes essential, for forgiveness clears away the noise. It dissolves the static. It removes the barriers you have unknowingly constructed within yourself. Without forgiveness, love cannot be felt in its fullness, because the mind remains tangled in old narratives that replay over and over again. But when forgiveness enters, those narratives lose their grip. They soften, dissolve, and eventually fade into nothing, making room for a new awareness to arise. Many people believe forgiveness is an act of weakness, as though letting go of past hurt means allowing someone to escape responsibility. But forgiveness is not about the other person at all. It is about freeing yourself from the emotional residue that keeps you anchored to a version of the past that no longer serves your growth. Forgiveness is strength, tremendous strength, because it requires the courage to choose freedom over familiarity, peace over pain, and truth over memory. Think of how many times you have revisited a painful moment in your mind, replaying the scene, repeating the same emotions, reinforcing the same wound. Each time you repeat it, you keep yourself connected to the energy of that moment, as though you are reliving it again and again. But forgiveness cuts the cord. It breaks the cycle. It says, I will no longer feed this memory with my attention. I will no longer allow it to shape my identity. In that instant, you reclaim your power. And as this inner space clears, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see the world through new eyes, eyes that are not clouded by past pain or fear. You begin to see others as they truly are, not as your wounds have interpreted them. You become available to love in a way that was impossible before. Love flows from you effortlessly because it is no longer blocked by resentment or guilt. This is where salvation becomes more than a concept. It becomes a living reality. Salvation is not a destination you reach one day. It is a shifting of identity from the limited self to the divine self. It is the realization that your true nature has never been wounded, never been diminished, never been lost. What you believed to be broken within you was only a story, a temporary veil, a misunderstanding. The real you, the eternal you, has always remained untouched. When this realization begins to dawn within you, even in small glimpses, you feel something inside you expand. You feel lighter, you feel clearer, you feel more whole. And this wholeness is not something you create, it is something you reveal. You reveal it by removing everything that has obscured it. This revelation is salvation. It is the unveiling of the truth that has been waiting beneath the surface of your awareness. And I want you to understand how practical this is. This is not philosophy. This is not abstraction. This is transformation at the level of consciousness. And consciousness shapes everything in your life. When you change your inner state, your outer experience must follow. It has no choice, because the outer world is always a reflection of your inner world. When you awaken to love, love echoes back to you. When you embrace forgiveness, life responds with freedom. When you step into salvation, your world becomes a mirror of that inner light. Imagine for a moment living your life from this awareness. Imagine waking up each day with a sense of clarity and peace, not because your circumstances have changed yet, but because you have changed. Imagine meeting challenges with calm, meeting fear with understanding, meeting conflict with compassion. Imagine responding to negativity with strength rather than reaction. Imagine walking through the world with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you truly are. This is not a fantasy. This is the life that unfolds when you align yourself with the truth that has always been within you. It begins with small choices. Choosing love in moments where you once chose fear, choosing forgiveness in moments where you once chose judgment, choosing awareness in moments where you once chose reaction. Each choice strengthens the new state you are stepping into. Each choice awakens more of the divine within you, and you will begin to notice subtle changes around you. People respond to you differently. Situations that once triggered you no longer have the same power. Opportunities appear where once there were obstacles. Doors open where once there were walls. You begin to attract experiences that resonate with your new state of consciousness. It is not coincidence, it is law. The inner state always produces the outer reflection. But to maintain this state, you must continue to cultivate love, not merely as an emotion, but as an awareness. Love becomes your lens. You look at yourself through this lens. You look at others through this lens. You look at life through this lens. And as you do, the world becomes a softer place. Not because the world changes first, but because your perception transforms. Love also becomes your protection. When you operate from a state of love, negativity cannot penetrate deeply. Fear loses its force. Anger dissolves more quickly. Anxiety loosens its grip. This does not mean challenges disappear. It means you meet them from a place of strength rather than weakness, from truth rather than illusion. Love strengthens you because love aligns you with your true identity, and forgiveness becomes your ongoing practice. You forgive as you breathe, not because you condone what happened, but because you refuse to let anything interrupt your connection to your divine nature. You forgive because nothing is worth the cost of your peace. You forgive because the moment you release the past, the present becomes a place of possibility again. You forgive because forgiveness is freedom. And from this freedom, salvation continues to unfold. Salvation is not a single moment, it is a process of awakening. It deepens every time you choose truth over illusion, every time you choose love over fear, every time you choose forgiveness over resentment. Salvation expands in you like light filling a room. At first it is a spark, then a glow, then a warmth, then a radiance that touches every part of your being. You will notice that as salvation unfolds, you become more authentic. You begin to speak from your deeper self rather than your conditioned self. You begin to act from inspiration rather than obligation. You begin to trust your intuition, your inner voice, your inner guidance. You no longer seek approval from others because you have found a source of validation that is unshakable. You no longer chase after worthiness because you recognize your worth as inherent. Your life becomes simple, not because everything is perfect, but because you stop complicating it with doubt, fear, and the need to control. You move through your days with a sense of flow. You handle challenges with calm. You speak with kindness. You listen with presence. You give without fear. You receive without guilt. This ease is the natural expression of a consciousness aligned with love, forgiveness, and salvation. And as you continue to sit with these truths, something quiet inside you is already shifting. You may not notice it at first because the deepest transformations often happen gently, silently, beneath the surface of your awareness. But with every word you hear, a seed is planted. And that seed is the recognition of who you truly are, beneath every layer of conditioning, beneath every wound, beneath every belief you have ever accepted about yourself. The more you listen, not just with your ears, but with your inner awareness, the more this recognition rises within you like dawn breaking over a still horizon. Love, forgiveness, and salvation are not ideas to be studied. They are states to be entered. They are living realities that reshape the way you perceive the world, the way you speak to yourself, the way you understand others. And the more you immerse yourself in these states, the more your life becomes a reflection of them. You begin to notice synchronicities where before you saw coincidences. You begin to experience clarity where before you felt confusion. You begin to feel guided where before you felt lost. This guidance does not come from outside you. It comes from the awakening of your inner being. When you begin to live from a state of love, everything becomes easier, because love is not an emotion you generate. It is the natural expression of your true nature. You do not force love, you allow it. You do not manufacture love, you uncover it. You do not chase love, you reveal it from within. And the moment you see yourself as worthy of love, not because of anything you have done, but because of who you are, your entire relationship with the world changes. Imagine standing in front of a mirror. For years, perhaps you have looked at your reflection and seen flaws, mistakes, regrets, or disappointments. You have looked through the lens of judgment, comparison, or shame. But when love becomes the lens through which you see yourself, everything changes. The same reflection now carries a different meaning. You begin to see not the human mistakes, but the divine potential. You begin to see not the failures, but the resilience. You begin to see not the wounds, but the healer within you. This new vision is the beginning of transformation. And once you start to see yourself through the lens of love, you naturally begin to see others the same way. You recognize the humanity in them, yes, but you also recognize the divinity. You understand that beneath their actions, their words, their fears, their defenses, there is a self that is longing to awaken, longing to remember, longing to return to its true state. When you see others in this way, compassion becomes effortless. You no longer take things personally. You no longer react with anger or fear. You respond with understanding because love has softened the sharp edges within you. This is why forgiveness becomes so powerful. Forgiveness is what clears the inner space so that love can move freely. Without forgiveness, love is blocked. It cannot express itself fully. It becomes confined by the walls of resentment and memory. But when you forgive, even a little, those walls begin to crumble. And in their place grows a spaciousness, an openness, a quiet peace that allows love to flow without restriction. Forgiveness does not mean pretending that nothing happened. It means recognizing that what happened no longer has the right to define your present state. It means withdrawing your attention from the old narrative and placing it on a higher truth. It means saying, I choose to be free, even if the memory tries to hold me captive. And each time you make this choice, you loosen the grip of the past until it no longer has power over your emotions, your identity, or your future. Some of you listening may carry wounds that feel impossible to release, wounds that have been part of your story for years, wounds that have shaped your sense of self. But I want you to understand something. You are not the wound. You are the awareness that has witnessed the wound. You are the presence that has survived every experience, the presence that remains untouched by what the mind remembers. Forgiveness is the act of returning to that presence. It is the act of saying, I am not defined by what happened. I am defined by what I choose now. And when you choose forgiveness, you choose freedom. You choose peace. You choose truth. And from this truth, salvation continues to unfold. Salvation is not a single moment of awakening. It is an ongoing revelation. It is the gradual realization that the self you thought you were is only a shadow of the self you truly are. It is the recognition that the divine is not something you reach. It is something you reveal. Salvation is the lifting of the veil that has separated you from your own infinite nature. You begin to feel this salvation in small ways at first. Moments of clarity, moments of intuition, moments of inner stillness, moments when you feel an inexplicable peace, a deep calm, a quiet knowing. These moments are not random. They are glimpses of your true nature breaking through the surface of your awareness. They are reminders of the truth that has always been waiting for you. The more you accept these moments, the more frequently they appear. They become familiar, steady, reliable. They guide you. They comfort you. They awaken you. And eventually they become the foundation of your daily life. You begin to trust the inner voice that speaks not in fear, but in love. You begin to trust the feeling of alignment that tells you when something is true for you. You begin to trust the inner guidance that leads you toward your greatest expression. This trust is salvation lived. It is salvation embodied. It is salvation expressed through the choices you make, the words you speak, the energy you carry. And as this inner state stabilizes, your outer world begins to reflect it in unmistakable ways. Relationships heal, doors open, new opportunities arise, old patterns dissolve. People who once triggered you lose their power. Situations that once felt overwhelming become manageable, even effortless. This is not magic, it is the natural consequence of living in alignment with your true nature. And the more you live in this alignment, the more you realize that love, forgiveness, and salvation are not separate from each other. They are three expressions of one truth. Love is the nature of your being. Forgiveness is the clearing of anything that obscures that nature. Salvation is the recognition of that nature as your true identity. Each supports the other. Love makes forgiveness easier. Forgiveness makes salvation clearer. Salvation makes love inevitable. Together, they form a cycle of awakening that deepens with every moment of awareness. And I want you to understand something vital. This awakening is not reserved for a select few. It is not reserved for the enlightened or the perfect or the spiritually devoted. It is available to anyone who chooses it, anyone who turns inward, anyone who listens, anyone who allows their heart to soften, their mind to open, their spirit to expand. This awakening is your birthright. It is the reason you are listening to this message. Something within you is ready. Something within you has already begun. And so, as you continue on this path of understanding, every moment becomes an opportunity to practice. Every thought becomes an opportunity to choose love. Every memory becomes an opportunity to choose forgiveness. Every breath becomes an opportunity to step into salvation. And as we continue deeper into this unfolding journey, I want you to recognize how every moment of your life has been preparing you for this inner awakening. Even the moments you believed were setbacks, even the burdens you carried, even the nights you thought you were alone, every one of them was shaping something inside you, carving space for a truth greater than anything you had known before. You are sitting here now, listening to these words, because something within you is ready to rise. Something within you is ready to step into a higher understanding of love, forgiveness, and the salvation that has been quietly waiting at the core of your being. So let us continue, not as students of a distant teaching, but as participants in a living reality. Love is not a concept. It is a force that transforms everything it touches. Forgiveness is not a moral duty. It is the liberation of your own consciousness. Salvation is not a promise for a distant day. It is the awakening that is happening within you right now. These truths are not external. They are internal. They are not intellectual. They are experiential. They are not about belief. They are about realization. You begin to understand love not by trying to feel it, but by recognizing that it is already within you. Love is your natural state before fear entered, before judgment entered, before you learned to see yourself through the eyes of the world instead of the eyes of the divine. From the moment you were born, you were love. You were open, receptive, trusting, present. Over time, experiences shaped you, protected you, hardened you, but none of that changed your essence. Your essence remained, and love is simply the return to that essence. The more you return to this inner truth, the more clearly you begin to see the difference between love and the substitutes the world offers. What many call love is often attachment, fear of loss, seeking validation, or emotional dependency. But true love is free. True love is expansive. True love is self-sustaining. It needs nothing from outside because it flows from within. When you love from your true nature, you do not cling, you connect. You do not grasp, you give. You do not need, you share. And what you share multiplies because the source of that love is infinite. This love becomes a guide, a compass, a force that rearranges your inner world. It softens your responses, clears your perceptions, and reveals a wisdom within you that was hidden beneath layers of fear and past pain. And as this love rises, forgiveness becomes not only possible, but natural. Because love sees truth, and truth sees beyond the mistakes, the failures, the misunderstandings that once felt so heavy. Forgiveness, in its highest expression, is not an act you perform. It is the state you enter when you no longer wish to carry the weight of the past. It is the realization that nothing the world has done to you can diminish the truth of who you are. It is the understanding that holding on to resentment punishes only the one who holds it. It is the knowing that you deserve the freedom that forgiveness brings. Forgiveness asks you to look at your memories not as chains, but as opportunities for liberation. When a memory arises that still carries pain, it is not asking you to relive the hurt, it is asking you to release it. It is asking you to look at the situation through new eyes, eyes that are no longer blinded by past emotions. It is asking you to understand the deeper truth, that everyone involved was acting from their state of awareness at the time, and that awareness was often shaped by their own fears, wounds, and misunderstandings. Forgiveness allows you to see this clearly, without bitterness, without attachment, without needing to rewrite the past. You only need to release it, and with every act of forgiveness, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was once tangled in old stories. You gather your energy, your strength, your clarity, and you return them to your present moment where they belong. With each release, you expand. With each release, you rise. With each release, you move closer to the experience of salvation, not as a distant hope, but as a living reality. Salvation is the recognition of your true identity. It is not about being saved from something external. It is about awakening from the illusion of separation. It is the moment you realize that the divine is not somewhere above you or beyond you, but within you. That realization changes everything. When you know that the divine is within you, fear loses its meaning, judgment loses its power, doubt loses its grip. You stop seeking approval from the world because you have found a deeper approval within yourself. Salvation is the state in which you remember that you and the divine are not separate, that your life is not random, that your existence is not accidental. You remember that there is a purpose woven into your being, a purpose that does not rely on external achievement or recognition. It is the purpose of expressing the divine through your thoughts, your actions, your presence. It is the purpose of awakening to who you truly are. When you begin to live from this state, life takes on a different quality. You feel supported, guided, connected. You experience synchronicities that reassure you that you are walking a path aligned with your soul. You feel a sense of inner stability that remains even when the external world becomes chaotic. You find that challenges no longer break you, they transform you. They become catalysts for deeper understanding, deeper compassion, deeper awakening. This is the life that begins to unfold when you embrace love, forgiveness, and salvation as living truths. And the more deeply you embody these truths, the more naturally they become your default state. You begin to speak to yourself with kindness, not criticism. You begin to see others with understanding, not judgment. You begin to move through the world with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing your worth is inherent, unshakable, unchanging. You may notice subtle shifts within yourself, moments where you choose patience instead of anger, compassion instead of defensiveness, awareness instead of reaction. These moments matter. They build upon one another. They accumulate into a new identity, a new consciousness, a new life, and you will begin to realize that this transformation is not an effort. It is a return to the truth you have carried since the beginning. Every step you take on this path brings you closer to living as your true self, and as this true self emerges, your relationships transform as well. You no longer seek from others what you once lacked within yourself. You no longer place expectations on them to fill voids they were never meant to fill. You no longer lose yourself in the pursuit of validation or approval. Instead, you enter relationships as a whole being, not a half-seeking completion. You love from abundance, not need. You give without fear, because giving does not diminish you, it expands you. This state of being draws others who resonate with your inner clarity. Your presence becomes a mirror for the truth within them. People feel safe around you, understood, accepted. Your energy becomes healing without you even trying, because the vibration you carry lifts others naturally. You become an instrument of love, not through action alone, but through your very state of being. And this is where forgiveness deepens even further, because as you awaken, you begin to see the patterns that once defined your past relationships. You begin to understand why you attracted certain experiences, why you repeated certain cycles, why certain wounds persisted. You realize that these experiences were not punishments, they were teachers. They revealed what within you was ready to be healed. They exposed the beliefs that no longer served you. They showed you where love was needed most. Once you understand this, forgiveness becomes effortless. You no longer resent those who hurt you. You thank them for revealing what needed attention within yourself. You no longer blame yourself for choices made in lower states of awareness. You recognize that you were growing, learning, awakening through each experience. This understanding creates a profound inner peace. It frees you from guilt, shame, regret, and resentment. It frees you from the emotional chains that once held you back. It frees you to step into a future unburdened by the weight of the past. And as this peace expands, salvation becomes not only a realization but a lifestyle. You begin to make choices aligned with your highest self. You follow intuition instead of fear. You speak truth instead of hiding behind masks. You honor your boundaries without guilt. You express love without hesitation. You forgive quickly because you refuse to let small disturbances disrupt your inner harmony. You notice a new rhythm in your life, a rhythm that feels guided, supported, effortless. You find yourself in the right place at the right time. You encounter people who reflect your inner growth. Opportunities appear that align perfectly with your purpose. Challenges arise only to reveal greater strength within you. You begin to understand that nothing in your life is random. Everything is connected. Everything is purposeful. Everything is unfolding in harmony with the awakening taking place within you. And through all of this, love remains the foundation, forgiveness remains the path, and salvation remains the awakening that continues to deepen with every breath, every awareness, every choice you make. And so as we come to this final moment together, let your heart absorb what has been awakening within you all along. You are not the sum of your past. You are not the mistakes, the wounds, or the doubts that once shaped your story. You are the awareness that has risen through every experience, the presence that has discovered its own depth, the being that now remembers love as its foundation, forgiveness as its freedom, and salvation as its birthright. Carry this truth with you beyond these words. Let it guide the way you speak to yourself, the way you meet others, the way you walk through each day. Let it soften your steps and strengthen your spirit. For the power that has been stirring within you is not fleeting. It is the beginning of a new way of living, a new way of seeing, a new way of becoming. And as you move forward, remember this: you are worthy of love, capable of forgiveness, and destined for awakening. Everything you need is already within you. Now step into the world and live from that truth.